Did you know there's a man in the Bible who was hated by God before he even took his first breath? That's right, before he was born, God declared, "Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated." His name was Esau, and his story is not just mysterious, it's explosive. A tale that has baffled theologians for centuries. How could the God of love hate someone before they even lived a single day? Was Esau destined to fail? Or was there something deeper at play? Something that might just change the way we understand divine justice, free will, and grace. Is it possible that Esau's story holds a mirror up to our lives today, revealing truths about the choices we make and how they shape our destiny? You're about to watch something truly special. I've spent countless hours, pored over hundreds of books, dissecting scriptures, studying ancient commentaries, and exploring the wisdom of theologies across centuries, just to bring you this. The journey has been long, challenging, and deeply rewarding. Why? Because I believe these 8 parables have the power to change your life. This isn't just another video, it's the culmination of years of research, reflection, and passion. So grab a notebook, open your heart, and get ready. What you're about to hear is worth every second of your time. So, are you ready to uncover the truth behind Esau, the man who was hated by God? Let's dive in. The man hated by God even before he was born. Let's take a journey back to the ancient desert lands, to a family chosen by God himself. Esau was born into a lineage of promise, a family marked by divine covenants. His grandfather Abraham was the man to whom God said, "I will make you into a great nation." His father Isaac was the miracle child born to Abraham and Sarah in their old age. And then came Esau and Jacob, 2 brothers whose lives would unfold in ways no one could have predicted. But here's where it gets interesting. Even before Esau was born, God revealed something shocking to Rebekah. "2 nations are in your womb," he said in Genesis 25:23, "and the older will serve the younger." Why would God choose the younger brother over the elder? And why did this decision seem to set Esau on a path of rejection? Stay with me, because this is where the story takes an unexpected and dramatic turn. 2. The prophecy before birth. Imagine this. Rebekah feels the twins struggling within her, their rivalry starting before they even see the light of day. She cries out to God, and he answers with a prophecy that would change everything. 2 nations are in your womb, and 2 peoples will be separated from your body. 1 people will be stronger than the other, and the older will serve the younger. Did this prophecy seal Esau's fate before he had a chance to make his own choices? Was God unjust, or was there a greater plan at work? Let's delve deeper into the story and uncover the truth behind this divine decision. 3. Esau and Jacob, a tale of 2 brothers. Esau, the firstborn, was a rugged man, a hunter, the kind of person you'd expect to lead a nation. Jacob, on the other hand, was quiet, thoughtful, and stayed near the tents. Their personalities couldn't have been more different, and this difference created tension not only between them, but within the family. Esau became his father's favorite, while Jacob found favor with his mother. This division planted seeds of rivalry that would grow into one of the Bible's most dramatic family feuds. But here's the twist. Esau would make a choice, one single decision, that would change the course of his life forever. What was it? And why did it lead to such devastating consequences? 4. The birthright, a tragic exchange. One day, Esau came home from the field, exhausted and famished. Jacob, always the strategist, saw an opportunity. He offered Esau a bowl of stew in exchange for his birthright. Now, the birthright wasn't just a family tradition, it was a sacred inheritance, the right to lead the family, receive a double portion of the estate, and carry on God's covenant promises. But in that moment of hunger, Esau despised it. Have you ever made a rash decision, only to regret it later? Esau's choice wasn't just impulsive, it was catastrophic. By trading his birthright for a meal, he set the stage for a lifetime of bitterness and loss. 5. Here's where things take an even darker turn. In Malachi chapter 1, verses 3 and 4, God declares, "Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated." These are some of the most chilling words in Scripture. Why would God hate Esau? Was it because of his choice, his character, or something deeper? The Bible suggests that Esau's actions reflected a heart that didn't value God's promises. He sought temporary satisfaction over eternal blessings, and in doing so, he lost everything. 6. The blessings stolen by Jacob. As if losing his birthright wasn't enough, Esau faced another blow. Jacob, with the help of Rebekah, deceived their father Isaac and stole the blessing meant for Esau. When Esau realized what had happened, he cried out in anguish, "Bless me too, my father," but it was too late. The blessing was gone, and with it, Esau's hope for a future as the leader of his people. Can you feel his pain? Imagine knowing that your own brother has taken everything from you. Esau's story is a warning, a reminder of what happens when we undervalue the gifts of God. Esau's story isn't just a tale of rejection, it's a mirror for us today. How often do we trade what's eternal for what's temporary? How often do we let bitterness and regret define our lives? Regrets are not pleasant. But here's the good news. Esau's story doesn't have to be ours. Through Jesus, we have a chance to reclaim what's been lost, to value God's promises, and to live with purpose and hope. Loved by his father, hated by God. How would you feel knowing God himself said, "I have hated you"? This is the story of Esau, a man whose life was marked by strength, failure, and divine rejection. But why? 2. The Manasseh, strengths and flaws. At first glance, Esau seems like the kind of man anyone would admire. So why did he fall so far? Strength. Esau was a man of great skill, a hunter who thrived in the wilderness. Genesis 25:27 tells us he was beloved by his father Isaac for his rugged strength and ability to provide. Picture this, a man with broad shoulders, bow in hand, standing proud after a day's hunt. Esau embodied success in the eyes of the world, weaknesses, but here's the twist. Esau's strength couldn't save him from his greatest enemy, himself. Esau was impulsive, living for the moment rather than eternity. His fatal flaw is revealed in Genesis 25:29 through 34, when, driven by hunger, he sells his birthright to his younger brother Jacob for a bowl of stew. What should it really mean? Think about it. A birthright meant more than inheritance. It was his spiritual blessing, his role in God's covenant, and he gave it all up for a fleeting moment of satisfaction. Would you have done the same? Or is this a reflection of us, trading what's eternal for what's easy? 3. The birthright, a pivotal moment. In that single act, did Esau seal his fate, or was this a deeper test of character, one he failed spectacularly? The birthright symbolized God's promise, stretching back to Abraham. By trading it away, Esau revealed his disregard for spiritual matters. Genesis 25 verse 34 says, "Thus Esau despised his birthright." This wasn't just a bad deal, it was a rejection of God's blessings. Or Esau's marriages, alienation from God. End section 1. But Esau's downfall didn't stop there. His choices in marriage would only deepen the rift between him and God's covenant. But finally, Esau's covenant with God ended. Genesis 26:34 through 35 describes Esau marrying 2 Canaanite women, a direct violation of God's commands. These unions brought grief to his parents, Isaac and Rebekah. Picture the heartbreak, parents weeping, knowing their son's choices led him further from God. Was Esau rebelling, or was he simply careless, blind to the weight of his decisions? Either way, his actions show a pattern, a man driven by impulse, not by faith. 5. The bigger picture. Why was Esau hated? But here's the question that haunts this story. Why did God hate Esau before he was even born? Is that fair? Romans 9:13 reminds us, Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated. This isn't about arbitrary rejection, it's about divine sovereignty. God, in his omniscience, saw the paths both brothers would take. While Jacob's life would eventually reflect repentance and faith, Esau's would be marked by disregard for God's covenant. Does this make you uncomfortable? It should. It forces us to wrestle with the reality of God's justice and the consequences of our choices. Esau's story is more than a cautionary tale. It's a mirror. What do you see when you look at his life? Guard your birthright. Don't trade what's eternal for what's fleeting. Are you prioritizing temporary satisfaction over your relationship with God? Be mindful of your choices. Esau's marriages show how one decision can ripple through your life and others. Are your choices aligning with God's will, God's sovereignty? Esau's rejection reminds us of God's ultimate authority. But remember, his justice is always balanced with mercy. Why did God hate Esau? The story behind the controversy. Who were Esau and Jacob? Esau and Jacob were twin brothers, the sons of Isaac and Rebekah, and grandsons of Abraham. Esau was the firstborn, destined by tradition to inherit the blessings of his father. Jacob, however, was younger, weaker, and less favored by their father. But from the beginning their story was anything but ordinary. Even in the womb they struggled against each other, foreshadowing a life of conflict. And in Genesis 25:23, God tells Rebekah, "Two nations are in your womb, and the older will serve the younger." Was Esau truly hated before he had a chance to prove himself? Malachi Mundaroms, the words that sparked controversy. Malachi 102-3. In this Old Testament passage, God declares, "Jacob I have loved, but Esau I have hated." 27 through Esau, 27 through Esau. Paul echoes this in Romans 9:13 to discuss God's sovereignty, saying God's choice was not based on their actions, but his divine plan. There was purpose. Does this mean God hates certain people? The term hatred here is not about emotional spite, but a rejection of Esau's role in the covenant. Jacob was chosen to carry forward God's promise to Abraham, while Esau's lineage would not be part of this divine plan. Is it possible that God's hatred wasn't about Esau the person, but what he represented? Let's dive deeper. Esau's choices, destined or self-inflicted. Esau's life provides critical clues about his rejection, but he is missing some of its higher levels. Why would he have been apt to reject her? Selling his birthright. Esau traded his inheritance for a bowl of stew. Genesis 25:29 through chapter 34. This impulsive act showed his disregard for the spiritual significance of his birthright. Marrying pagan wives. Esau's marriages to Hittite women grieved his parents. Genesis 26:34 through 35. This choice aligned him with pagan practices, distancing him further from God's covenant. Was he destined to fail? Some argue that Esau's downfall was inevitable, part of God's sovereign plan. Others suggest his actions, his disregard for spiritual blessings and alignment with worldly desires, played a role in shaping his fate. Which is it? Was Esau a victim of predestination, or did he dig his own grave by turning away from God's promises? The contrast between Esau and Jacob. Jacob's pursuit of the blessing. While Jacob was far from perfect, deceiving his father to steal Esau's blessing, his determination to seek God's promises stands in stark contrast to Esau's apathy. Esau's rejection of spiritual inheritance. Esau focused on the here and now, while Jacob, despite his flaws, sought the eternal. This difference reflects a deeper spiritual truth. God honors those who value his promises, even if they stumble along the way. But here's the ultimate question. What does Esau's story mean for us today? Could we too fall into the same trap of losing what matters most? My guest is author and president of People at Peace, McFable Hendley. Esau's story reminds us that while God's plans are sovereign, our choices still matter. We will not be discouraged, but restored after despair. We're called to seek God, value His blessings, and live according to His will. Esau's redemption arc, a surprising turn. 1. Esau's pain, the weight of rejection. From the moment Esau and Jacob were conceived, their destinies were marked. In Genesis 25:23, God declares, "The older will serve the younger." Even before their first breath, Esau's place in God's plan was overshadowed by Jacob, his younger brother. But why would God do this? What did Esau do to deserve such rejection? Or was this all part of a bigger plan? Esau grew up as the rugged hunter, favored by his father Isaac, while Jacob, the quiet thinker, earned their mother Rebekah's affection. But when Esau sold his birthright for a bowl of lentil stew, everything began to unravel. 2. Betrayal and the broken blessing. Key moment. In Genesis 27, Jacob, with his mother's help, deceives Isaac into giving him the blessing meant for Esau. The betrayal was devastating. When Esau returned, his father could only offer a secondary blessing, saying, "You will live away from the richness of the earth and the dew of heaven above." Ezekiel, Genesis 27:39 verse 40. Can you feel his heartbreak? What would you do if your own family took everything you held sacred? Esau's cry of anguish echoes through the ages. "Bless me too, my father." Genesis 27:38. It's a moment of raw humanity where the weight of rejection and loss comes crashing down. 3. A surprising turn, the reconciliation. Years later, in Genesis 33, something remarkable happens. Esau, the man who once vowed to kill his brother, meets Jacob again. This time, instead of revenge, Esau runs to him, embraces him, and weeps. Jacob says, "If you're out of my life, I can stay in it." How does a man go from betrayal and bitterness to such grace and forgiveness? What changed in Esau's heart? Jacob, terrified of Esau's wrath, bows before him, offering gifts as a sign of peace. But Esau, in an act of profound humility, waves them away, saying, "I already have plenty, my brother." This moment is not just a reunion, it's a redemption. 4. Esau's legacy, a life beyond bitterness. Esau becomes the father of the Edomites, Genesis 36. Though he was outside the covenant given to Jacob, Esau's story doesn't end in anger or despair. He carves out a legacy of his own, proving that rejection is not the final word. 30. Did you know that even though Esau wasn't part of God's chosen line, he still left a lasting impact? What does this tell us about God's grace for those who feel overlooked or forgotten? Esau's story shows that even when life doesn't go as planned, reconciliation and growth are possible. He chose to forgive, to build, and to live beyond the shadow of his brother. The story of Esau, the man hated by God, even before he was born. Esau's life is one of the most dramatic and controversial tales in the Bible, a story of betrayal, divine rejection, and a second chance at grace. But why would God say, "Jacob I loved, but Esau I hated"? Malachi 1:02 verse 3. How could Esau be rejected before he even had a chance to prove himself? And what lessons does his story hold for us today? Stick around, because we're about to uncover the shocking truths behind Esau's life, a tale that will make you reflect deeply on your own choices, your faith, and your relationship with God. Part 1. Esau's world, a family torn by favoritism. Imagine being born into a family where your destiny is decided before you take your first breath. Esau and Jacob, twin sons of Isaac and Rebekah entered the world in dramatic fashion. The Bible tells us Esau was the firstborn, but even at birth, Jacob was clutching his brother's heel, a prophetic symbol of the struggle that would define their lives. Genesis 25:24-26. Esau grew up as a rugged, impulsive hunter, favored by his father Isaac for his strength and skill. Jacob, on the other hand, was quiet and shrewd, beloved by their mother. This favoritism planted seeds of division that would lead to one of the Bible's most heart-wrenching betrayals. Part 2. The danger of immediate gratification. One of the most unforgettable moments in Esau's life comes when he sells his birthright for a bowl of stew. Genesis 25:29-34. Yes, stew. Esau, exhausted and hungry from a day of hunting, dismissed the eternal blessing of his birthright as worthless compared to his immediate hunger. How often do we trade something priceless for a fleeting pleasure? Whether it's compromising our faith, values, or integrity, Esau's story warns us of the danger of choosing what feels good now over what is eternally good. Some say a frugal life is like a fetid fancy, the likes of which never exist. God's sovereignty and our responsibility. Many wrestle with this question. Why would God hate Esau? The truth lies in understanding God's sovereignty. Before Esau and Jacob were born, God declared that the older will serve the younger, Romans 9:10-13. This wasn't a matter of personal preference. It was about God's plan to fulfill his covenant through Jacob. But Esau's downfall wasn't predetermined. His choices, selling his birthright, marrying foreign wives against his family's wishes, Genesis 26:34-35, and valuing the world over God, Genesis, coexist. God's sovereignty doesn't remove our accountability. Instead, it reminds us that our actions still have consequences. Part 4. Forgiveness and redemption. Esau's story doesn't end in bitterness. After Jacob deceives their father and steals Esau's blessing, you might expect Esau to harbor hatred forever. And for a time he does. But years later, when the two brothers reunite, something remarkable happens. Esau forgives Jacob, Genesis 33:4. Esau runs to meet Jacob, embraces him, and weeps. Despite his flaws and losses, Esau displayed a forgiving heart. This moment teaches us that no matter how deeply we've been wronged, forgiveness is always possible. Esau's story isn't just about rejection. It's about choices, consequences, and the possibility of redemption. It reminds us that our decisions shape not only our future, but our spiritual legacy. What will you do with the blessings and opportunities God has placed in your life? Will you cherish them or trade them for something fleeting? Let me hear from you in the comments. What do you think about Esau's story? Was God's judgment fair? How does his story resonate with your life? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Esau's story, hit that subscribe button for more Bible stories that challenge and inspire. See you in the next video.